Hey everyone, welcome back. We're going to be doing things a little bit differently today. Usually we're diving deep into earnings calls, but some breaking news just dropped and we got to talk about it.
Yeah, things are moving fast.
You want to understand complex situations quickly, so we're your shortcut to figuring out what's going on and why it matters.
Exactly. And this news is a big one.
Definitely big. Nissan shares just shot up.
24%. That's a massive surge.
Yeah, 24%. And it's all because of reports that they might be merging with Honda.
If this happens, this could create the world's third largest automaker.
Right behind Toyota and Volkswagen.
Those are some heavy hitters to be up against.
So to really grasp the potential here, we need to understand what's happening in the auto industry right now.
It's undergoing a major transformation, and traditional automakers like Nissan and Honda are feeling the pressure.
Yeah, you've got these EV giants like Tesla and BYD completely changing the game.
And Chinese automakers are entering the market with incredible force.
It's a whole new ball game. And this merger could be a way for Nissan and Honda to adapt and thrive.
Definitely a power play.
And we've talked before about the challenges both companies have faced, especially in China.
Yeah, their market share has been declining there, which is a huge problem because China's a crucial market for EVs.
So how could a merger address that?
By pooling resources and investing more heavily in EV development.
Think about it. They could combine their R&D budgets, manufacturing capabilities, even their distribution networks.
It's about creating a more robust and efficient structure.
Exactly. And that could allow them to develop and produce more competitive electric vehicles.
It's like combining the best of both worlds.
Honda is known for its fuel-efficient and reliable engines.
And Nissan's been a pioneer in the EV space with the Leaf.
Imagine what they could achieve together.
Now here's where it gets even more interesting.
Okay, I'm listening.
There are rumors that Mitsubishi Motors could be part of this merger too.
Wait, really?
Nissan already owns a chunk of Mitsubishi, so it's not entirely out of the question.
So we could be talking about a combined entity with...
Annual sales of over 8 million vehicles.
That would make them a major force in the global auto market.
No doubt about it.
But mergers of this size always come with challenges.
Oh, absolutely. There are so many factors to consider.
Like the political landscape, for example.
Right. There's all this talk about potential changes to EV-friendly policies.
And the upcoming elections could create even more uncertainty.
Any shift in policy could impact the EV market and the success of this merger.
We're going to have to keep a close eye on that.
Agreed.
And then there's the financial side of things.
You know, these companies need to make sure their current gasoline-powered vehicles remain profitable.
Because that's what's going to fund their transition to EV production.
It's a balancing act.
And this merger could provide the financial stability and scale they need to pull it off.
It could free up capital for more aggressive investments in EV development.
So let's recap for a second.
Sure.
We've got two iconic Japanese automakers potentially merging, maybe even with Mitsubishi joining the party.
Yeah. All this happening against the backdrop of a rapidly changing EV landscape and a pretty unpredictable political climate.
What's the most important thing for our listeners to understand here?
I think it's crucial to grasp the why behind this potential merger.
It's not just about getting bigger.
It's a strategic response to the immense pressure and rapid transformation happening in the auto industry.
And speaking of strategies, before we get to our "This is not financial advice" segment,
where we'll come up with a totally outrageous but plausible trade idea based on this potential merger.
just want to remind everyone that everything we discuss here is for entertainment purposes only.
Of course. Always important to remember that.
We're just exploring possibilities and having a little fun with the what-ifs.
Exactly.
All right, are you ready to get a little wild?
Oh, yeah, let's do it. It's really interesting when you think about the cultures of these two companies.
Yeah, Honda and Nissan, both Japanese automakers, but they definitely have their own distinct identities.
For sure, they each have their own approach to design and engineering.
And merging those cultures, that's a huge hurdle in any merger.
Absolutely. It's not just about combining finances. You're talking about blending different work styles, decision-making processes, even philosophies on car design.
It's a lot to navigate.
Think about it. You've got Honda, known for their reliability and fuel efficiency.
And Nissan, with their history of pushing boundaries with sportier models and innovative technology.
Like the GTR, a true icon.
So do you think those differences could clash, or maybe even spark some unexpected innovation?
I mean, it's definitely possible sometimes those clashes can lead to breakthroughs.
That's a good point.
But it takes strong leadership and a shared vision to prevent things from going off track.
Right. You don't want to end up with a product that tries to be everything to everyone and ends up appealing to no one.
Exactly. It's a delicate balance.
Okay, let's play devil's advocate for a second.
All right, I'm game.
What happens if this merger falls apart? What if Honda and Nissan go their separate ways?
That's a great question, and I think it's important to consider because there's always a chance things could go south.
So what happens then?
They'll each have to reassess their strategies for tackling the EV revolution and all that fierce competition.
It's not like they can just hit pause on everything.
No way, the EV race is only getting more intense. They can't afford to fall behind.
So what are their options?
Well, they could try to find other partners.
But that might not be so easy.
True. Or they could double down on their individual strengths.
But that could be risky too.
Yeah. It's a tough spot to be in.
It's like they're at a crossroads with a bunch of different paths ahead of them.
And they have to choose the one that gives them the best chance of success.
Okay, let's zoom out for a moment and think about the bigger picture.
The global implications of this potential merger.
Exactly.
Right.
We're not just talking about two companies here. We're talking about a potential shift in the entire automotive industry.
Right. This could create a powerhouse that challenges the dominance of Toyota and Volkswagen.
And that could have ripple effects across the globe.
Think about it. A combined Honda, Nissan, Mitsubishi entity could become a national champion for Japan.
Giving them even more influence on the world stage.
And potentially impacting trade relations and investment flows.
It's crazy to think about.
And we can't forget about the potential impact on the global supply chain.
Oh yeah, that's huge.
A merger of this scale could lead to consolidation among suppliers.
Creating a more centralized, potentially more vulnerable network.
It's like a domino effect. Each decision has consequences that ripple throughout the entire system.
And those ripple effects can be really hard to predict.
Which is why the story is so fascinating.
We're dealing with a ton of interconnected factors, and we're only just starting to unravel them.
It's a complex puzzle.
So to recap, we've got cultural considerations, political uncertainties, global ramifications, and a whole lot of unknowns surrounding this potential merger.
It's a high-stakes game with no clear winner yet.
So much to think about.
The key takeaway for you is this. The auto industry is transforming rapidly, and this merger is a prime example of how companies are adapting to stay ahead of the curve.
The future of transportation is up for grabs, and it's going to be a wild ride.
Buckle up.
Now, before we jump into our This Is Not Financial Advice segment, where we'll brainstorm a totally wild but plausible trade idea based on this potential merger.
I love this part.
Got to remind everyone this is purely for entertainment purposes only.
Of course, always crucial to remember that.
We're just having some fun exploring the possibilities.
Thought experiments, that's what we're all about.
Exactly. All right, ready to get a little crazy?
Bring it on. I'm ready for anything.
Okay, let's say the merger actually happens and this automotive powerhouse is born.
All right, I'm picturing it.
And instead of trying to compete directly with Tesla, they decide to focus on something different.
Like what?
Affordable, practical electric vehicles for the mass market.
Interesting.
Think about it. Electric versions of popular models like the Honda Civic or Nissan Sentra.
It's targeting the everyday consumer.
Exactly. Making EVs accessible to people who can't afford a Tesla.
That's a huge market.
If they can pull this off, they could capture a massive chunk of the EV market.
And with their existing manufacturing capabilities and supply chains, they could potentially keep costs down.
So here's the trade idea. A long-term bullish option strategy on the combined entity.
Betting on their success in this affordable EV market.
We're talking long-dated call options, maybe 2 to 3 years out, on a basket of stocks from all three companies, Honda, Nissan, and Mitsubishi.
That's a bold play.
But if this scenario actually plays out, those options could be worth a fortune.
It's a gamble for sure, but the potential payoff could be huge.
Now, obviously, there are a ton of risks involved.
Oh, yeah. Regulatory hurdles, integration challenges, competition from established players like Tesla and BYD.
But for the sake of this thought experiment, let's assume they overcome all those obstacles.
And then things get really interesting.
Because if this trade gains traction, it could become a self-fulfilling prophecy.
The more investors buy into this idea, the more capital flows into the combined entity, potentially fueling their success even further.
It's like a snowball effect.
And don't forget about the potential for a short squeeze on those betting against the company's success.
Oh yeah, that could get messy.
Now, to make this trade idea even more intriguing, we could consider specific technical triggers.
Like what?
For example, we could set our entry point based on a breakout above a certain price level.
Showing strong momentum.
Exactly. And for an exit strategy, we could consider taking profits at specific price targets or setting a trailing stop loss to protect our gains.
It's all about managing risk and maximizing potential rewards.
Always remember, folks, this is purely hypothetical and for entertainment purposes only.
Right, don't base any actual investment decisions on our playful banter here.
We're just having some fun exploring the possibilities.
Exactly. But wouldn't it be wild if this actually happened?
Honda, Nissan, Mitsubishi creates EV giant takes on Tesla.
It's got a nice ring to it.
It does, and the potential implications for the automotive industry are huge.
This could be a major turning point in the EV race.
A game changer for sure.
Before we wrap up this wild ride, let's take a step back for a second.
All right, sounds good.
What does this potential merger tell us about the state of the auto industry?
I think it highlights the incredible pace of transformation happening right now.
Driven by tech advancements, changing consumer preferences, and intense competition.
Companies are being forced to adapt or risk being left behind.
It's a sink or swim environment.
And as investors, enthusiasts, or just curious minds, we need to understand these dynamics.
This deep dive is just the beginning of the conversation.
There's so much more to uncover as this story unfolds.
We encourage you to dig deeper, explore different perspectives, and form your own conclusions.
Exact. Don't just take our word for it.
Right. We're going to shift gears and move on to the final part of this deep dive.
Sounds good. I'm ready.
Stay tuned because there's more to uncover.
One thing we haven't touched on too much yet is the whole regulatory landscape.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one. Especially with a merger this size, it's got to figure there's going to be a lot of antitrust scrutiny.
Definitely governments around the world are going to be watching this very closely.
It makes you wonder how they're going to view this potential automotive giant. On one hand, they want a competitive market, but they also want to support their domestic industries, especially in a sector as vital as autos.
Yeah, it's a tricky situation for regulators.
They're going to have to figure out if this merger would hurt competition, lead to higher prices, fewer choices for consumers.
No easy answers there.
And then you throw in the current political climate and things get even more complex.
Right. Protectionist sentiments are on the rise globally.
Governments are going to be extra careful about cross-border mergers, especially when it comes to industries they consider strategically important.
Makes sense. They want to protect their own interests.
It reminds me of that whole battle between Broadcom and Qualcomm a few years back.
Yeah.
National security concerns and political pressure played a big role in how that played out.
Oh, for sure. Similar dynamics could definitely come into play here.
Governments are going to want to make sure this merger doesn't give the combined entity too much control over critical technologies or supply chains.
They don't want to see one company become too powerful.
So to sum it all up, we've got a potential automotive powerhouse facing regulatory hurdles, political scrutiny, and all the uncertainties of the global market.
It's a high-stakes game with a lot riding on the outcome.
Absolutely. And for our listeners out there, it just goes to show that the business world is constantly evolving.
Companies are always trying to gain an edge in this complex, interconnected system.
Staying informed and understanding these dynamics is crucial for navigating this landscape.
No doubt about it.
Now, for one last thought experiment in our This Is Not Financial Advice segment,
Okay, maybe that.
let's imagine a world where this merger doesn't just succeed. It triggers a wave of consolidation across the entire auto industry.
Whoa, that's a bold prediction.
Picture this a future where just a handful of mega corporations dominate the automotive landscape.
Each one controlling a portfolio of iconic brands.
Imagine General Motors merging with Ford to create an American automotive titan.
And then Volkswagen acquiring Stellantis to form a European powerhouse.
It would be a seismic shift in the industry.
Like the formation of supercontinents in the automotive world.
Exactly. And the trade idea here is a long-term bet on the rise of these automotive giants.
Investing in a diversified basket of stocks and ETFs that represent these mega corporations.
Think a combination of individual company stocks like GM, Ford, Volkswagen, Toyota.
And ETFs that track the whole automotive sector.
It's a bet on the idea that bigger is better in this new automotive world.
Makes sense those mega corporations would have the scale, resources, and market power to drive innovation, manage costs, and potentially dominate the global market.
But of course, there are risks involved.
But yeah, for sure.
Integration challenges, regulatory hurdles, potential clashes of corporate cultures. All these factors could derail this whole consolidation wave.
And let's not forget about the wild card of technological disruption. What if a new player comes along, a company even more disruptive than Tesla, that completely changes the game again?
That's always a possibility in an industry that moves this fast.
Yeah.
But that's what makes it so exciting.
It's full of surprises and opportunities.
For those who can anticipate the next big thing.
And that's what we try to do here on The Deep Dive. Explore the most compelling stories, uncover hidden insights, and empower you with the knowledge to make sense of it all.
So that wraps up our deep dive into this potential Honda-Nissan merger. We encourage you to keep following this story and let us know what you think.
Remember, the key takeaway is this: the auto industry is constantly changing. The future is uncertain. But by staying informed, asking the right questions, and staying curious, you can navigate these shifts and maybe even spot some exciting opportunities along the way.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive. We'll be back soon with more insightful discussions on the most interesting stories shaping our world.
Until next time, stay curious.